history of this big Lowell Street. This is what says way out. We seen it twice, this is the third time. That was in Council Lobby about it. I know who he is. You know, you guys ready? Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the January 24th Lowell Planning Board meeting. The first matter we have on is the approval of the August 20th, 2012 minutes. Any of the board members have any questions on those minutes as they are drafted? If not, we'll entertain a
I'll move approval of those minutes, Mr. Chairman.
motion been made to approval. Any second or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of notes on the November 5th minutes.
Yep, I'll get to those first, one August 20th
August
first,
20th,
okay?
my apologies.
Okay, no problem.
So I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion made and second on August 20th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. Those are approved. Moving along, we have the November 5th. Mr. Boyle, I think you said you had a question on the November 5th minutes, I'm sorry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of notes on the, on the language about our recommendation. I've handed some, I've handed out to each of the members, I apologize for the size of the font, some proposed language changes. Taking them one by one, the second bullet point, I found it a little confusing, and it occurred to me that the reason I was finding it confusing was because it isn't a sentence that expresses something that we found. So I just added in the language, the board found that the existing neighborhood better resembles the character. You can see the changes I made are in bold and the strikeouts, and language removes is in strikeout. That's just a minor grammatical change. The third bullet point, I thought I'm striking out the language, although supportive of a zoning amendment to the subject property for residential use, and beginning the sentence with, it is the board's opinion that the traditional single-family developed TSF district is not the appropriate designation. Just to give it some, just so that we're not stating our conclusion in our reasoning, and that same statement is in the fourth bullet point as well. And then the changes in the fourth bullet point, they basically add up to, I believe, a more accurate description of what we had actually said at that point in the meeting, when our actual decision on the Bigelow Street proposal. If you remember, we also went back and revisited the issue at the end under other comments, and that's when we made the request to the to staff. And I thought that this language more accurately reflected the discussion that we had at the time that we took the action on the Bigelow Street amendment. We hadn't actually expressed, I don't think the board as a body expressed its opinion about, frankly, the matter that's before us tonight, so much as threw it back to staff to bring us something different to consider.
Any of the board members have any comments on the amendments proposed by board member Mr. Boyle?
Is he making those changes in the form of a motion, Joe?
Yeah, for discussion purposes, I move to amend the minutes of the November 5th, 2012 meeting to reflect these changes.
Yeah, I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Just before we go any further, does anybody have any, Jerry, any discussion? I know, Bob, you weren't here for that meeting, so you probably don't have any input on the minutes at that point. My only question is, before we adopt that completely, are there any other corrections on anything else on the minutes that's proposed? Okay. Hearing none, okay, so we do have a motion that's made and second to amend the minutes as alleged to the rezoning that took place on 106.1 Swan Street. Did he give you a copy of these, so you can amend them that way? Okay. So we have the motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, so those minutes have been amended, and we will attach that to the amendment that we have. So moving along this evening, we do have two public hearings. The first one being zoning amendment for Bigelow Street, and the second one being a medical marijuana treatment center zoning amendment. So the first matter is in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A. This is for the zoning amendment of Bigelow Street and 160.1/160.2 Swan Street. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an ordinance to amend the City of Ordinance, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to the Appendix A, therefore entitled zoning. The amendment would establish the suburban single-family zoning district to include all parcels of land with frontage along Bigelow Street, as well as the entirety of 160.1, 160.2 Swan Street. The area proposed to be rezoned presently lies within the high-rise commercial district and the traditional single-family TS zone district. This matter came to us as way of, let me just grab mine. We received communication by City Manager, Mr. Bernard Lynch, which was to the Lowell City Council, then referred to the Planning Board. It is, it's indicated that Mayor Murphy and members of Lowell City Council, we rezoned in Bigelow and Swan Street. Their mayor and members of the City Council. The attached ordinance has been prepared for your convenience in response to a motion made by Councilor Laurie, seeking to rezone the entire Bigelow Street and the parcels located at 160.1, 160.2 Swan Street to create a new suburban single-family zoning district. This matter should be forwarded to the Planning Board for a report of recommendation, followed by a public hearing. Should the council wish, this may be could be referred to the public hearing on a date no earlier than February 5th, 2013. Then we have a letter to Mr. Clausen from our Planning Department that was sent by our city clerk, Mr. Geary, indicating that at the regular meeting on December 11th, 2012, the ordinance was referred to the Planning Board from the City Council, and we have the language drawn up for the ordinance in the legal description that was put in, and was approved by form by our city solicitor, Christine O'Connor, and we had a little map on the back that shows the zone. I know for a lot of people, this is not new territory for us, because we've seen the Bigelow Street rezoning is new, but the Swan Street has been before us twice in the past. So at that point in time, I will open up the public hearing. If anybody would like to speak in regards to rezoning, whether they want to speak in favor or against, anybody at this point in time want to speak in regards to the rezoning on, it looks like all of Bigelow Street, with anybody that's frontage on Bigelow Street, and those sections of 160.1 and 2 Swan Street. Anybody like to speak in favor of the zoning change?
Good evening, gentlemen. This is unusual. We're speaking in favor of it. Usually we're on the other side of the fence. I guess you got that.
Your name and record, for the record, please, sir.
Ken Harkins, 110 Bigelow Street. Normally we come down here against this. Something wrong here, but we are in favor of it because we've been going through this rigmarole for quite some time, and you've been very patient with us, but we finally worked through to get a solution to it. And we do appreciate the fact that you take this time, and we would like to be in favor of it. I'm in favor of changing it. Hopefully we can get this moving along. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in regards to the zoning change?
Calvin Miller, 38 Bigelow Street. Again, I too am in favor of it, and I believe the consensus of the majority of the neighborhood here are all here and present and all in favor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak?
My name is Judy Pear. I live at 82 Bigelow Street, and I just have a quick question. Reading through this, I didn't get the insinuation that all of Bigelow Street is going to be rezoned. Is that, am I taking that right?
The way I read it, it says anyone who has frontage on Bigelow Street. So any house that fronts Bigelow Street would be included. They sent us a copy of the map, and to me, it looks like it's the whole street. Do you have it, Steve?
Okay. That was just what I was unsure of.
Want to take a look, Mr. Bullock, give it to us? That's the map they gave us, so it looks like, I believe, last time we were here, we had a good discussion over in the mayor's conference room. And I think it was, Mr. Miller brought up how the property was bigger in size at that point in time. And, you know, why should we keep it smaller and bigger? And I think the board heard a lot of your concerns. And I think at that time, when we were speaking against it, and then we voted against his recommendation, and then the applicant at that time who was going forward, represented by Attorney Plunkett, they withdrew at the council. And then, as a result of that, I see Councilor Laurie brought it forward. So it looks like, to answer your question, ma'am, I think it is everything on Bigelow Street.
Okay, thank you very much.
I mean, because, and the question we've had over the years is, since we've seen this for a few years now, is how does Swan Street end up? And we've always addressed that address, how it's just sitting back there when you drive down Bigelow Street. Where's the Swan Street?
My name is Donald Pear, and I also live at 82 Bigelow Street. And I just have the one question.
Sure.
I was against the proposal when it first come up and so forth. But this zoning change, that means if it's approved by the planning board tonight and by the city council at its meeting, right?
No, what happens is, Councilor Laurie made the motion at the council meeting in December.
Right.
So therefore, they refer to the law department to draw up the proper legal description document. Then they have to refer it to us for public hearing.
Okay,
So we make a recommendation tonight, then the council has to take it up again.
okay,
So our recommendation tonight is non-binding for the council, but so from after tonight, there'll be a hearing at the city council, and they'll have the final say.
okay. And then my question is, if all this goes through the process
Right.
and so forth, and it is eventually okayed by the council,
Right.
it will go from I believe it's the high-rise commercial, HRC,
Right.
traditional single-family,
Right.
to suburban single-family for the whole street,
Right, it'll be all,
including the new project.
correct. Yes. That's
Okay.
that 160 Swan Street address.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Which,
Then that's my question.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I think some of the concerns when we met before was, you know, we wanted that bigger in size, and I think that was a good discussion we had. And I think at that time, the applicant, who was represented by Attorney Plunkett, was saying, we're willing to do that, but there was a stipulation, I think by the zoning, it's more concrete. Yes. I mean, so I think, actually, we had a pretty good discussion on it last time, so, and then I see where the councilor brought it forward before the applicant did, so. So he's not the applicant on this one, but I think we know that if it gets approved, I'm sure he'd be happy about that, but, so, does anybody else want to speak in regards to rezoning? Or is there anybody here who doesn't want to speak, who's in favor, just want to get a show of hands? Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, another 4, 5 show of hands. Anybody here who's against the zoning change who wants to speak? I mean, probably nothing, yeah. Probably figures he'll stay out of it until, because he's not on it, I don't know. Sometimes he's better off, but I won't go any further. But, I'll stop. So, does anybody have a show of hands who's against the zoning? Sure.
You gentlemen know that the house on that property is no longer there?
And there's an open hole.
First I've
Was
heard of
it?
it.
Yeah, he took the foundation out.
The last time I was up there, the 2 houses were there and the crane was sitting right behind it. Is the crane still there?
Yes, but he hasn't got anything around it so somebody could fall into it.
Oh, really?
So if you have a problem on that, what you can do is somebody can call inspectional services and they'll go up and look at it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other further question? No? Okay, at this point in time, does board members have any questions? Have any comments, or?
I just want to say, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that, you know, sometimes government works, right? This is kind of ugly. We had a couple of contentious meetings, but we hashed it out. And, you know, it's nice to see once in a while we can come to an agreement that everybody's happy with. And I think this will be a good one, because I think as a suburban single-family zone on that new parcel, it's going to limit the number of houses that will go in there. The houses are going to have bigger yards, more consistent with what is on Bigelow Street. So I really think it's a good solution for everybody, so glad to hear that we finally got this one in the books, almost.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anybody else? Mr. Boyle?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for staff. First, 160.2 Swan Street, that is the little triangle at the bottom?
Yes.
It is, okay. The other issue I wanted to bring up, this is a proposal to take further land out of commercial zoning and put it into residential zoning. I did not find anything in my packet from the Economic Development Office commenting on that aspect of it. Has there been, I see that there's nobody from the Economic Development Office tonight to argue against it. Is there opposition, would planning staff advise that rezoning this parcel would represent be inconsistent with the master plan or with the economic development of the city?
Aaron did inform me that he did have discussion with multiple divisions within the planning department, and they were in agreement with the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else, Mr. Boyle?
Nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pichette, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Genron summed it up very nicely based on, it's been actually years that we've been working on this. And I think, Mr. Miller, to credit you, I think you brought up that the whole situation with the lot size and the setbacks of the existing homes there. And in taking a look at this, and I all along, I think, my position, I think it was better for the neighborhood to have it be residential, and I think this really is the best solution. So it's a good example of the neighbors sticking with it and working on a solution and not just trying to be against something for the sake of being against it, but you were part of the solution, which I think I applaud everybody here. So I think it's a good resolution to this for the neighborhood. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bob, do you have any questions, concerns? No?
I wasn't here for the initial discussion, but I see this as good planning. I think it's the right thing to do.
I agree also. I think it's a good compromise maybe, or a best thing for the neighborhood. And I applaud everybody for coming out, especially on a cold night like tonight. I didn't know how many of you'd be here, to be honest with you. I said, but we knew your concerns one way or another because we've listened to you. And I think, as Jerry has said, by listening to what the neighbors have to say, I think that brought us to the final resolution when they said, think of doing it this way, think of doing it that way. And I think between the council and the planning board, we listened to that. And I think hopefully, if our recommendation is in favor tonight, hopefully the council will again listen. And I'd recommend that you show up for the council meeting because it would make the final determination. We're only a recommending body, but hopefully we'll make it what you really want it to be in the neighborhood. Like you say, when you bought the property, you expect it to be that way, and things don't always come out that way when you buy a piece of property and you've been there for a period of time, because zoning takes a funny twist on things, so.
Mr. Chairman, there was one other aspect of this that I wanted to bring up. If you notice, the stream channel that flows through the property to the east of the subject parcel, accessing the subject property from Industrial Ave, that is accessing it for commercial development, would require a stream crossing, whereas accessing it off of Bigelow Street, that is for residential usage, does not require a stream crossing. Therefore, it is preferable to avoid those wetlands disturbances wherever possible. So let's throw that on the fire as reasons in favor of this rezoning.
Because we had a long discussion before about how much wetlands are back there and how they didn't even think they could come in through the high rise to get in that way because of the wetlands, which was what one of the applicants was saying at the previous meetings. Anything further from the board? If not, entertain a motion.
I have one more comment,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. So just from a procedural standpoint, if and when the developer wants to develop this Swan Street property, put houses on there, he will have to come issue a plan that will be reviewed by the planning board. True?
He will have to go through a site plan review
plan.
process, considering if he's looking at subdivision or
Right.
if it's more than a certain number of units.
Okay. All right, so we might see you all again sometime in the future. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
So at this point in time, we'll go along with the,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend approval of this zoning change to the city council.
motion's made and second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 And chair votes yes, so we have 5 in favor and none against. Thank you all very much again, I appreciate you coming down on a cold night. Thank you, good luck.
One question, now we're all done with that.
Sure.
When does the Conservation Commission get in because of the wetlands and stuff like that?
They would come in. Conservation would get involved if they come in to develop the site. They don't get involved in the zoning, it's when they come in to develop, then they might have to go before conservation. Site plan, yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huckins. Okay. This is a whole new zoning petition. This is not a continuation of the old one, this is a new start. Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, because there's a whole new, there's a whole new, his own question. Thank you. Okay, moving along, we have another zoning amendment, and this is the Medical Marijuana Treatment Center. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Appendix A, therefore entitled zoning. The amendment would insert new language in Article 2, definition, insert Section 6.1.43 to Article 6, General Regulations, insert new Section 7.110 to Article 7, Special Regulations, and amend Article 12, Table of Uses, by inserting a new use under 12.3N related to medical marijuana treatment centers. This matter came before the council and was referred to us. This was sent to us by, was sent to the council by City Manager Lynch. It just says, to give you a little background, attached, please find the zone ordinance which would provide thoughtful regulation of medical marijuana treatment center that are anticipated to emerge as a new land use with the recent passage of a ballot measure legalizing medical marijuana. The proposed approach is similar to the model used in the Lowell zoning ordinance to address the body art establishment, narcotics detoxification facilities, and other land uses which are deemed undesirable to some and which have characteristics which may make them incompatible with certain neighborhood uses or inappropriate to locate in residential areas of the city. However, this approach stops short of an outright ban, which the city has been advised would be unlikely to survive legal scrutiny by the courts. Please refer this matter to the Planning Board for public hearing and back to the council. We had a copy of the matter before us. By looking at it quickly, it goes through and talks about the purpose of it, and it will be treated as a healthcare facility. It would require a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it wouldn't come before the Planning Board, it'd go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they write out criteria for 7.103, would meet a demonstration needs, provide a secure indoor waiting area for clients, provide an adequate pickup drop-off area, provide adequate security measures to ensure that no individual participant will pose a direct threat to the health and safety of other individuals, and that the storage and location, the cultivation of marijuana is adequately secured in locked facilities, adequate address issues of traffic demand, parking, and queuing, especially at peak periods at the facility. It has impacted the neighborhood use. The Zoning Board of Appeals may require the applicant to provide a traffic study at the applicant's expense to establish the impacts on traffic peak, comply with all signal regulation. Is to be located, be located within 5,000 feet of another medical marijuana, though it shall not be located within 5,000 feet of another medical treatment center marijuana facility. Then on the back page it goes on, not 500 feet of a public or private elementary school, middle school, secondary school, or public library. may not be located in the same as a licensed pharmacy. Display off premises signage. And then it goes on and mentions a few things. Allowed use would be by special permit in the SMU and RR regional zones and prohibit said use in all other zones. I did speak with Swati at length at this, and I did speak with Aaron at this. And just for a little background, they gave us a little bit of a map tonight that shows where the buffer locations would be, what the regional retail would be, where the suburban mixed would be. Also, I understand that is, I believe the whole state is only giving out 25 licenses for these. Is that what it was? Swati?
Yes.
Yeah. So it'll only be 25 in the whole state. So therefore, anticipation with, speaking with planning staff and development, the city could end up with maybe one at the most, because there'd be 25 statewide. So this is on, for us, for our recommendation. So they tried to restrict the use by putting it in certain areas, and we have done for other matters in the past. And that's a map they have. I don't know if you want to pass that around, Jerry. It shows like where it could go, where it might not go. So, so basically, it could only go in those two types of zones, which would be the regional retail and the SMU, and that would be by a special permit issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Saying that, anybody here want to speak in regards to this zoning amendment? Anybody want to speak in regards to it, in favor or against? In favor or against? Hearing none, anybody, any of the board members have any questions in regards to the zoning proposal?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Swati, just, as I'm trying to understand the, what we would envision medical marijuana treatment center, what would, how would, I mean, I think of a, you know, a mix between a methadone clinic and a pharmacy, and how we handle each one in the city. And I am concerned with the suburban mixed use, even the regional retail, to be honest with you. I'm curious as to the model that's being presented as a medical marijuana treatment center. I'm still having a hard time trying to understand that.
Okay, I will try to explain to the best of my ability. Unfortunately, we don't have a model to say this is what it will look like, since the whole state is new to the whole concept. My discussion with Aaron, I understand there will be a lot of regulations that will be mandated by the health department of the state, and also again from the city's health department. So they will be more in tune, or they will be making those recommendations, and I believe they'll be very stringent, because they don't want to leave any loopholes for anyone to manipulate the intention, the true intention of why this got voted into an allowable use. So whatever decision or recommendation the board makes, the council, whether they take a decision or not, will again get, this will get again reviewed, because right now the state is in the process of developing those regulations for what is considered allowable under this umbrella of this marijuana treatment facility. So as soon as we get more information about it, we will gladly share that information with you. We are in correspondence with the health department to keep us posted about that.
Did staff have discussion? Would it be prudent to wait for additional information? I mean, what was the reasoning? And I understand that, the body art, and, we don't allow massage parlors in suburban mixed use, but, one could argue there's a medical reason there. So, I had envisioned with this passage that somehow a pharmacy would be involved. So now we have a whole other facility, and I know there were some methadone clinics in the city, and I think that serves a purpose, but it is a whole other type of element, and most of those are in some sort of an industrial or commercial type area, and this really puts it, I'll be honest with you, suburban mixed uses right along the river, on the Pawtucket Boulevard, also on Middlesex Street. Actually blends right at the whole area we're talking about, regional retail, with issues we've had on that other side of the river. Although, And I think actually suburban mixed use and regional retail run right into each other in that particular area. I'm trying to understand the rationale behind those zones being selected. And I understand for the body art, but I still see this as a lot different than
Okay.
a body art.
Yeah, definitely it's different. I think body art was mentioned there because of the general public interest, or rather concern about such a use. Not in, otherwise in any comparison to what is proposed. I would think this will be more closely to something which is like a pharmacy. So what's going to happen is, with regard to the environmental concerns, it will be subject to any other, what any other project goes through, even if it involves, a cultivation part or any kind of storage, anything that is involved will go through the Conservation Commission review. The reason why the regional retail was recommended by DPD and also favored by the law department was also, we are looking at just 25 facilities for the whole state. So this is going to serve not just the city. We are looking at this being, maybe facilitating or catering to consumers or, patients from like other neighboring or regional municipalities. So regional retail has the best infrastructure support in terms of road access and everything. So that is the major reason why regional retail has been included, or preferentially the first area of location. The reason why suburban mixed use has been recommended is, depending on, and once again, to remind, this has to go through a special permit through Zoning Board of Appeals. Each case will be taken within its own context. So if they are proposing, let's say if this gets recommended and adopted, they are proposing a project in a TMU, definitely that location will be questioned for what are the other, mixed use happening in that location. So just because it got, proposed at SMU will not mean it's an automatically agreeable project. So traditional mixed use is more likely, we are anticipating it should be something which is highly regulated, and it will be more in the terms of how a pharmacy functions. And I'm sure, we will have more clarity on that once we know what the public health department standards are for this.
Would there be any, and I think it's like an adult zone, you can just have it in one particular zone, allowable in one particular zone in the city.
Yes.
If we just had it as regional retail, or if we had it as, if they, because I can see this 25, what are we, the fourth largest city in the Commonwealth, you're probably gonna get one, so I suspect. And you hit the nail right on the head, it's regional. We have all these facilities, and we're a magnet for the surrounding towns for coming in for social services and other treatments, and it's part of being an urban center. It comes with it. But would it make sense to have something off of Industrial Ave, off of where all of the, Lowell connector is, and then, you're not in a visible retail, we're trying to attract businesses here in the city of Lowell, quality businesses. Would it be better to put something where there's manufacturing facilities? And, some of the methadone clinics, that's where they offer Hale Street, and they're kind of tucked away. Again, I'm trying to envision, what is this going to be like? And if we don't even have that, I'm just a little concerned about putting it in real high-profile zones, regional retail, SMU. And it seems to me, if regional retail was selected for access, then really, why wouldn't we want something that would be less visible but have the access, which would be the industrial park and industrial Ave? I throw that out for food for thought for the board. I'm curious if there was any discussion at the planning department.
We believe the scale of what will be proposed will not be an ideal fit for the industrial zone. Again, I think the planning department has, it feels access is better for the regional zone than the industrial zone. And especially in terms of, we are looking at industrial zone being accessed more by, more like delivery and collection of materials and things like that. Whereas for regional retail, you're looking at, imagine this could very much may look like a clinic where, you're looking at more cars approaching for collecting their medicinal prescription or something like that. So what I was informed was that was the major reason why regional retail was preferred over industrial.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for now, but I have to defer to the board.
The issue of location in the proper zones to include this was on the top of my head, too. I thought that there were some real advantages to the idea of regional retail and suburban mixed use, in that, first of all, those where those are located, where those districts are located, would not be locating these facilities within neighborhoods. And I thought that was pretty clearly one of the major goals of this. We don't want these to be an in-the-neighborhood use, like a corner store, like a commercial building downtown, but rather want them to be something that is on a commercial strip. You think about the dimensional requirements in the regional retail and suburban mixed-use zones. It isn't like, we're not talking about walking past a storefront like you would downtown. Rather, you're driving down a very large street, and there are a number of driveways or parking lot entrances along that street. One of them's McDonald's, one of them's JCPenney, and one of them is one of these uses. And you go in and park in that parking lot if you want to access that facility. And if you don't intend to access that facility, there's no reason that you'd find yourself near it or next to it or something. The way these suburban strip commercial uses are laid out, they're like little islands unto themselves. It's not like having uses on your block or a couple blocks away from you in your neighborhood, but rather they're out on Middlesex Street, where they're like a Taco Bell or something else that's not in the neighborhood. So I thought both in terms of geographically in the city where they're located, and also how the properties themselves would be laid out, made regional retail make a lot of sense. The question about, which then led me to why regional retail and not high-rise commercial, or the other suburban-style, auto-oriented, highly accessible commercial or business districts out at the edge of the city. Jerry's comment about a question about the true industrial districts. Okay, if our true industrial districts aren't really accessible enough for a large customer, large number of customers driving from a regional, coming from a regional catchment, okay, the zoning district that Cross Point and the suburban businesses surrounded by parking lots in that area, why would that be inappropriate? Why was that left out?
So which district were you referring to?
HRC.
I believe, I'm not clear on that aspect, but I think the reason why HRC was left out was we were looking at HRC more from an office kind of business district approach, and this is more like a service industry we are looking at. So for all purposes, regional retail and suburban mixed use presented most of such services for City of Lowell.
Thank you.
Sure.
Another question I had, what is the reasoning behind number 3? They may not be located within or on the same lot as a licensed pharmacy.
That is something we were informed from some of the other communities in discussion. We were, in communication with some of the other planners. And that is because we are assuming it will have a very similar nature to a pharmacy. So we don't want any, people assuming it is something like, CVS or something where they can just walk in and do something similar like that, because the products will not be the same. It will be based on a purely prescribed. Imagine just the pharmacy part of a CVS, where you are basically not shopping for something, but coming there because someone has a need to basically access that facility. So I think it is more to avoid conflict of relative use between a typical pharmacy like CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, compared to a more medical pharmacy like this one. And I think that's part of one of the zoning code, the master plan, not master plan, that is something we have been following, I think, in terms of access and also demand, so that it's not in conflict with the other pharmacy uses.
See, I wonder about that. Somebody's going to be getting these licenses to operate these facilities in the city. Would we prefer to have established pharmacy operators, like whether CVS or whether a smaller local business, have that license versus a company that exists purely for this purpose? I'm not sure, as these things are being located here, that we really want to adopt any policies that would tend to increase the distance between a medicinal marijuana distribution use and established medical, the established provision of medical care. I would think that we would want to have those two things. Well, I would think we would want the medicinal marijuana use to as closely as possible hew to the practices and operations of established pharmacies. I wonder what the rest of the board thinks about that.
Can I put my...
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay. I discussed that a little bit with Aaron, because I also was under the feeling it will, why wouldn't you want something close to a hospital or something where it will be more structured and regulated? So we are basically trying to make sure that we address the general public concerns or feelings towards such a use. So we are making sure, we have accepted the fact that this is going to be a regional facility. So we are trying to make sure that these people are coming here as a destination, not stopping by on a way like we might do on a trip to CVS, where we are not exactly sometimes stopping by to get a medicinal requirement because it has other products. So we're trying to isolate this from the other general pharmacies in the city, so that people are coming in because there is easy access and this is serving a regional community. But we want to make sure this is in no way conflicting with what is considered as a priority for the general public.
It occurs to me that if CVS considers having this use to be in conflict with running a real pharmacy, that they wouldn't run one. They'd just leave their pharmacy as it is.
No, I don't think it is a conflict from the pharmacy side. It will be more from the city residents' perspective. Because
Perhaps I'm the only one. Perhaps I'm the only one here who thinks this, but I don't find that logic convincing at all.
we had a few concerned residents, calling up to ask about what this means to their neighborhood, or making sure it's not something easily accessible by their children and everything. So generally, from a point of view where, we were trying to see from their side what this will look like. You don't want to be a parent who is thinking like, I'm okay, letting a child walk into a CVS and maybe get a candy or something like that. This won't be such a use if we try to, look at it as a prescribed place where only people are coming because they have a reason to go there. So we were trying to respect that concern.
Our CVSs dispense oxycodone and other narcotics. And that has never been a problem, and I don't think anybody would even raise the issue of whether it's appropriate to be dispensing potentially lethal, addictive narcotics in a pharmacy.
Well, just to, from the point of view, that's something already what we would call in kind of like a grandfathered situation right now. But right now we have an opportunity because this is something, a new use proposed. So this is where we can, set all the limits if we want to. And I think this is not something the planning department is like, really married to whether to get this done or not. But this was something that was, generated in respect to basically classifying those two as, different, to respect the city residents' concern, and also going along with what they have been trying to do with any pharmacy, unless there is a required need. We try not to put two competing things together. This is not of that nature, I agree, but they were just trying to keep that going with this too.
I do not consider the reason we consider it appropriate for pharmacies to dispense narcotics. I don't believe it is a grandfathering, what are we going to do type of situation. I believe that it is pretty broadly supported that it is a legitimate, appropriate, and necessary thing for pharmacies to dispense narcotics. That said, if there was some, and there always are, some new medication that was developed, which was narcotic, which was addictive, which was possible to overdose on, I don't think that there would be any interest whatsoever in saying, no, don't allow that to be sold at pharmacies. And so to single this out as something that would be confusing or detrimental to the operations of a pharmacy, when it is being run by the state under the public health department, managed as a medicine, I'm still not seeing, I just don't see the conflict there. There was a statewide vote taken on this, on the ballot, and in the broadest sense, the question that was asked was, should this be treated as a medicine or not? And by a pretty wide margin, speaking of public input, by a pretty large margin, the public said that they did want it to be treated as a medicine. And so the idea that it would be segregated out of pharmacies, completely different from how all other, including much more dangerous medicines, are being treated, I just don't see the need. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to that point, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Boyle, but I'm not sure that we have a choice as to whether or not it can be distributed in pharmacies. I think state law is either mandates or is going to mandate that these centers be standalone centers for the distribution of medical marijuana. So I think the ordinance here is suggesting that it not be in the same location as a pharmacy, the distribution center. But I don't think we're at the point where we could even consider, over-the-counter at a pharmacy distribution of medical marijuana, even if it does make some sense the point you're making. But in any case, I think this is a good thing for us to be considering. As Mr. Frechette pointed out, we're the fourth largest city in Massachusetts. There's going to be 25 centers. We're likely to get at least one here, and we ought to have our house in order before that time. So I think it's good that we're having this discussion. That said, I am very concerned about the choice of regional retail and SMU as the districts where these things will be distributed. Regional retail, maybe by the pure definition of regional retail, it makes sense, an area for regional, commerce. But if you look in reality where our regional retail districts are, on Roger Street, as we've heard many times, regional retail goes all the way up to Berkeley Ave. So if you live on Buttman Road or Holyrood or Parkview or Wentworth, what we're saying is that this ordinance would make it legal to have a medical marijuana distribution center at the corner of your street. There's houses currently, neighborhoods right next to, adjoining regional retail districts, which is another problem altogether. But we don't want to compound, in my opinion, we don't want to compound that problem by allowing the location of these centers there. I don't think it makes sense. Middlesex Street, regional retail, I don't think that's an appropriate regional retail district personally. Certainly doesn't have great access. I think we've established that fact for sure. So if we're considering that Middlesex Street district, one, saying that this makes sense because it's easy for people from the region to get in and out of Lowell at that location, there's not a more difficult location to get in and out of Lowell if you come in rush hour traffic. Bridge Street, outer Bridge Street is regional retail. That's not really a good place for access as well. And it abuts, single-family neighborhoods. So I think it's a good idea for us to have this discussion. I have big concerns with the regional retail and the SMU districts as the ones that we designate for the location. I agree with my colleagues. I think that, light industrial and high-rise are probably a better usage, mainly because they tend to be on the outskirts of the city where there's good highway access. It seems to me we're probably going to have a lot of regional use to these centers, and I don't think we want to, bring a lot more unnecessary traffic into town, and I think we want to keep this particular distribution, on the outskirts of town where it's close to a highway. That's my personal opinion. I'm not in a position where I feel comfortable recommending this ordinance to the city council as is. I think we need some more discussion. But that said, I am glad we're doing that. I did have one other question for you, Swati, on the parking regulations. The shared parking, can you explain to me what that shared parking table means? The minimum parking requirement for this is 1 space per 200 square feet, which I guess seems reasonable. But what about this shared parking table where it's got 100, 180, 80? How does that work? It's on the front page of the ordinance where it says it's going to inject a line into the table, article of general regulations. Do you know how that shared parking model works?
Yes. So you're asking how it will be in specific to this particular use? Like what percentage will be assigned to this particular use?
So I guess I'm just confused about what the shared parking, those numbers in the shared parking table mean. Do you follow what I'm asking?
I am actually trying
See on the front page of the ordinance here, it's got this line that will be added to the table, Article 6, General Regulations. And it says zone where permitted. minimum
Yes.
parking requirement, 1 space per 200 square feet. And then on the right, there's shared parking regulations given there, where it says weekdays, 8 AM to 5 PM, 100.
Yes,
I'm not sure what that means.
Yes, that is basically looking at, when you have a shared parking space, and this is going in towards with where we have restaurants and everything also. This is pertaining to more to the, what ZBA deals with most of the time when they look for parking reductions and everything. So if it's a shared parking facility, we give them credit for actually putting the, sharing the parking space between multiple uses. So though we say we are looking at, 1 space per 200 square feet, this is the maximum use they're looking at. So this is basically helping them understand this is how much they are looking in terms of maximum use. Does that make sense? So if we
So
take...
this is a percentage?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So during these times, they
Yes.
need to have 100%.
Yes. So if you're combining...
Have at least, in this case, say the minimum parking requirement was 10 spaces on this center.
Yes.
So between the hours of 8 and 5, you need to have at least 10 spaces allocated.
Exactly,
Whereas
exactly.
between the hours of 12 AM and 6 AM, you'd only need 8 spaces.
Yes, so
Okay.
that's how the shared parking space
see.
works, so that, you're not,
I
let's say
get it.
the restaurant needs 10 and this facility needs 10, instead of providing 20, if they can, if their timing is staggered, we are saying we can work with 15 or 18 spaces.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I had...
No, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so then that's my objection is to the zones that are being indicated, and I feel like there needs to be more discussion on that.
Okay.
Bob, any questions, concerns, comments?
My comment is that I think there's a reasonable place to place one of these facilities, which I believe is not just a pick up your drugs spot, it's a treatment facility, like methadone or others. You go there as a patient, and you either have it administered there, or you are able to take it home for further use in your own home. And I think the logical place to put it is along the Lowell connector. It's a regional facility. It's the easiest place to get to and from for the region, and it doesn't interfere with any of the city's neighborhoods. And I may want to go from adding from high-rise to general industry too. It may do some renewal in that stretch. There are some seedy types of uses on that stretch that we consider general industry that could be rehabilitated to, I don't know how large this facility will be, but I'm looking at a medical clinic of some type, if it's serving a region. And I think that the logical place is along a very limited access highway like the Lowell connector. That's my comment.
I think a number of us are making the same point in a different manner, that searching for an established zoning district and saying it should go in that zoning district might not be the best way to approach the location issue, because there's so much diversity. The regional retail district right near the town line on Rogers Street is different than that same regional retail district a quarter mile up the road, which is very different from the regional retail district along Middlesex Street or the one up at the top of Bridge Street. Maybe this would be better handled in terms of creating an overlay that defines the specific areas that have that highway access for a regional customer base, and that are not, like some of these regional retail and SMU districts are, smack dab right up against residential neighborhoods.
So, planning board is actually encouraging you to discuss about the recommendations Of course, an overlay where something you're looking at, if it's getting proposed in regional district, we are looking at maybe, not within so much feet from a residential, where the boundary between the regional and the neighborhood starts, or setting something like that is definitely something the planning board can discuss further, or if it's something this discussion leads to, that's something we can be adopted and we can revise the language accordingly.
And Swati, one more question. While we're discussing where to locate and how to regulate certain medical use, has anyone in City Hall had discussions on this issue with the city's largest employer, Lowell General Hospital? You gotten your thoughts on this?
No, we haven't had that discussion.
I think that would be a very good idea. I wish to reiterate my point that it is very much in the city's interest, as well as the expressed desire of the public, to have this joined at the hip and with medicine, with the practice of medicine as much as possible. Doctors and pharmacists and the American Medical Association and their regulations and the legal regulations that have been placed on the practice of medicine, these are the protections that our society has decided upon and has been using for centuries, specifically for the purpose of, as it says here under purpose, dealing with medical materials and substances and practices which could potentially, if not done properly, have negative impacts on broader society and on the areas around them. Having these tightly regulated, making the practice of medicine so tightly regulated, that is what we do in order to achieve that protection. I think it would be very beneficial to the city as we struggle with this, to hear what Lowell General Hospital has to say.
Mr. Chairman, I know you haven't had a chance to speak yet, but if I may, I would just caution, the Lowell General Hospital is right in the middle of a densely populated neighborhood, residential neighborhood. Certainly there are challenges that exist there. They have a satellite facility in Chelmsford, right off of Drum Hill. I think if the medical community has a real interest in being on the forefront of that, they certainly could be speaking with neighboring town and have it in a regional area right off of Drum Hill area. So I would be just caution to that point. And again, I think that obviously it's an important discussion to have, and I think that obviously there needs to be some more crafting of what's before us. But Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. Definitely understand the intent of the zoning. I mean, like on all types of land use, whether we're in favor or against, I know, as indicated by the city solicitors in this matter, and what I've seen over the years is, you try to put it in a zone which is, like Jerry mentioned, if you have adult entertainment, you try to put it in a zone where be less chance of use. You don't want it near school. You don't have minor children. I noticed where you said it can't be within 5,000 feet of another treatment center. I have no problem with that. But when they mentioned 500 feet of a school, is there any reason why they went with just the 500 feet?
Usually for planning standards, that's considered, like walkable distance, and considering the scale of the city, that's been used as a measure for many of the planning purposes.
Yeah. Because, if you have it 5,000 for many of the medical marijuana centers, then you only have it 500 from a school. I mean, I would be more concerned with it being larger from a school than would be compared to another facility. I think the need and the purpose, as the purpose associated would be to, this be not located within close proximity to minors or concentrated in any one area within the city. I know under the state law in Massachusetts, if you're caught distributing drugs within 1,000 feet of a school zone, it's punishable by 2 years in jail, which is mandatory if you're charged with the conspiracy as well. So I know when you look at the state law in regards to distribution of drugs, which you can still be charged with distribution of drugs. I know in Massachusetts, you can get a ticket for being in possession if it's under an ounce. But if you have under an ounce and you have 2 joints and I give 1 joint to one other person, I can still be charged with distribution, even though I only have 2 joints, and still face 2 years in jail. So, I mean, I would just think, Mr. School, if that, I'd be more inclined, I'd like to see the school be more than 500 feet is what I'm getting at, where the state law has 1,000 for the school zone. And when we prove those cases for the 1,000 feet, what we have to do is, it's by the way the crow flies. It's a straight arrow. Many cases I've been in court, we bring the city engineers in to prove it. They put the map up, have to prove the whole thing. I've seen it with 996 feet, and the whole thing goes from there. But I can see the reasoning there for that. That's why my concern is I'd like, if possible, see it more away from the school, if at all. By looking at the map, I think some of these come a little close to some of the schools, and I think if we're gonna do it anywhere, I think the main thing would be to try to keep it, I'd rather keep it further away from a school than from another facility, to be honest with you. I mean, the good part that I liked about the zoning amendment is the fact that it is covered by a special permit. I think by the special permit, it does give a lot of scrutiny to where it goes, indicate that the zoning board of appeals have to consider, it meets a demonstration for need, provide, adequate pickup, traffic study if need be, and then blank out where not it would be allowed. So I think some of those are a good idea. I think, if you have to put in some in the table of uses, I imagine when staff was going over it, they're trying to say which zone's the best place to put it if you have to put it anywhere. And I know we dealt with this, like I say, with body art, adult entertainment, which we've had problems with a long time ago in the past. So, and I know, like I say, hopefully, if the applicant, we're looking at, hopefully maybe if one ends up in the city, at least if it's by special permit, and we have some of this criteria, hopefully we'd limit it to the best need, when they have to demonstrate where the need would be. That's can be determined many different ways on where's the best need to put it. I mean, that's controversial, I think, by ambiguous maybe, but at least by special permit, you'd have to show why that area is better than others. Because I think no matter where you put it, you're gonna have concerns for some people in that zone. I mean, you put it in the high-rise, and you say, well, we don't want it here either. So I think maybe that was part of staff thinking is, where can we limit it the most? What restrictions we put in? I know there's been a lot of thought here in Massachusetts statewide, trying to look at other states and adopt differently than like they have in California. In California, they're everywhere. California, they deliver 24/7. They can be in residential, they can be in business zone, they can be commercial zone, they can be anywhere. And there's no limitation on how many they can be. You can walk right in, right next to a school zone and buy it.
Yeah.
And I know by the discussions with the state, they're trying to limit, by looking at other states, how to criteria it, and I believe that's what we're trying to do here. So I mean, it's definitely tough to pick a zone. And that was the same question I had when I spoke with Aaron about it, why did we end up picking this zone? And he was saying, basically, we think it would be a destination area. They will come just to that one area, pick it up and move, and they're not gonna be like walking along downtown and finding that area. So I think it's tough to pick a zone to put in, no matter where you put it. I think you can find the pros and cons, but I think the main concern, what zone we pick it in, as long as we have some of this criteria, and like I say, even if we enlarged, the school zone, I think that would be a big idea. I mean, the part that cannot be, with the pharmacy, it can't be within or on the same lot. I have no problem with that. I think those pharmacies are regulated a lot more than this is gonna be regulated. And we do have a lot of drug robberies in pharmacies, there's no doubt about it. I see it in court at least twice a week. Pharmacies being robbed for OxyContins. Pharmacists being pistol whipped. Especially in the sites that I work in, Lynn and Lawrence, it's a regular occurrence. It's they're in there for that one particular reason. And to put this in here, and I know with the pharmacy, the intent is to keep it away from minor children, and kids do walk into CVS, they walk into Brooks or Rite Aid, you know, to pick up candy or Valentine or greeting card, whatever it may be. So, I can understand that it's tough to pick a zone to put it in, but I mean, I'd like to, you know, say if we had to pick it on one zone, I'd like to see it at least a lot further away from the schools. So, that's one of my concerns, so. Any board members have any follow-up? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Heidi Miller. I live at 124 Beacon Street. I have a question. I hear selling and buying of medical marijuana. Where is it going to be grown? On the facility, or
Don't know yet.
is that a zoning concern?
A lot of it, what I've been told so far by looking into it with our planning staff is, there's gonna be a lot of regulations with our public health department. And those regulations have not been drafted by the state as of yet. So I know a lot of these are gonna have to have, approval by the public health. And that's what we got into when we did the body art zone. What the body art zone was for tattoos and piercing, because we had a lot of people doing piercing and tattoos were getting hepatitis, and they weren't being regulated properly.
Right.
So the city looked at it, how do we help solve this issue? So every time, even though we regulate it by our table of uses and what zone to put into, it still has to be controlled by the Department of Health. And therefore, the Health Department of the city has a big say in the matter. When when those go in, they have to go and inspect it, they have to get a license for that facility. So, I know the state regulations haven't come down on the health yet, and therefore, when they do, then this also would be encompassed by things that will have to go before the Health Department. So some of this, I think, was drafted quickly because of the fact, once that ordinance took effect, we're trying to get it in before they start popping up, before we can't say you can't do it now. So we're trying to regulate it quickly before they start popping up, now we don't have it in our table of uses, so where they could go. So I think now is trying to restrict where they go. Isn't that the consensus of plan and development?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So they haven't decided that a facility who sells may not be able to grow it on their facility?
Yeah, let me just,
We don't know that yet?
let me see what it says. Under the purpose, it says, the purpose subject to position would be, it comes in Massachusetts General Law Medical Marijuana Treatment Centers, as it's saying, will be allowed to provide medical support, security, and physician oversight that meet or exceed state regulations as established by Mass Department of Health. It is recognized that the nature of the substance cultivated, so if it's cultivated, maybe it could be grown there, processed or sold by such. So I think maybe they could grow it
Yeah,
on site.
so when I was here in hospital or CVS, I think in other states, they actually grow it at the facility.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
I like the idea of the Drum Hill area. I was thinking along the same lines, a professional community.
Well, I know, like, adult entertainment, most cities and towns, they put them right on the border of the next city of town.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where they put them.
I love that.
No doubt in my
Jumps
mind. You look at your zoning, they're right there. Look at Tingsboro, right on the line.
right, right.
When Lowell had to do it, right on the line.
Right.
We don't want them coming downtown. Keep them on the outskirts. Because they're saying, you just can't ban it completely, so where do you put it? Furthest part out of town as you can.
Right.
So, I think this is something that has
Well,
that
that was
same
my
thought in the
question.
background.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if you were aware that I know in some states they were able to grow it at their facility, so I was just,
Well, in some states, let individual people grow it.
I just don't want to have a facility open up and someone's growing it, next door, yeah. Thank you.
I think this
That's
is,
like on the master plan with the farms and the chickens, right, Jerry?
Right.
Put more farms in the backyard of people.
I think that's an important point. It might be worthwhile considering identifying another use, one which is the distribution facility and another which is a manufacturing or processing facility. Under our zoning, if you have a Dunkin' Donuts that sells donuts, that's treated as one thing, and if you have a large bakery that produces donuts to send out to all the other Dunkin' Donuts, that may be treated as another. Maybe we need to have an industrial use and let's call it a service use, and differentiate between those.
I don't know if we have that choice, though. I think it's like you say, when the ballot question was passed, it's limitation on what was passed in that ballot question. We can't just go ahead and change that ballot question.
But we
So I
can-
think what happened is the state is trying to incorporate it, as indicated by, the Attorney General's office is involved in it, the Department of Health is involved in it. So they're trying to use the verbiage that was passed by that ballot question to regulate it by state and public use. So they just can't pick and choose the parts they like and don't like.
Well, picking and choosing the parts of operations that like and don't like is a very large part of what what zoning is.
I know, but the ballot question had nothing to do with zoning.
The ballot question had nothing to do with zoning, which means we need, that was a ballot question about public policy, health policy, and criminal justice policy, and did not get into land use issues. The land use issues are left to the communities. There's nothing that's more legal than the baking of donuts, and yet we can certainly regulate in which districts that can be done. Unless there is something specific, some specific language in the ballot initiative that would forbid cities from doing that. Yeah, I think this is a question that the city needs to answer, because where a clinic which operates like a little pharmacy should be located is a different question from where some sort of processing facility, some sort of industrial-ish type operation should be located.
Well, we have all this fertile land in the SMU district along the river there. That might be a good spot for growing it. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I feel like, Swati, I think you've heard a lot of our input here tonight, and I really feel like rather than have us try to, fix the ordinance here tonight, I'd like to suggest that we send it back and delay this and ask you to consider some of our feedback and make a recommendation, whether it be changing the zoning or creating an overlay or creating a buffer, increasing the buffer around the schools or a buffer around neighborhoods and things like that. But so I guess I'd put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we request the planning department to redraft the ordinance based on the feedback we've proposed tonight.
Let me just ask one thing. Has this been scheduled for public hearing before the council yet, do you know?
I'm not aware about that.
I just know it said it couldn't be any earlier than the 5th, so I mean,
Yeah, we have another 2 weeks.
yeah, so but I don't know if they put it on the agenda for the 5th, which would be, that's a week from, because a week from tomorrow is February 1st, so you're talking a week and a half. So, we could go on record as either, for the zoning amendment, against the zoning amendment, and then, as we did before, saying we're against it for reasons as outlined, and then see if it goes before the council or not, and then indicate why, and then they could take it from there. These are some of the concerns we had as it's drafted. We know it has to go in some zone, but how can we regulate it more? It's, I think, with what the echo with most of the board members are.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So maybe I'll withdraw that motion and make another motion suggesting that we recommend denial, I guess, of this particular, or go on record against the current drafting of this proposal, and further request that the planning department redraft it with the considerations of, increasing the buffer around school zones, increasing the buffer around neighborhoods, considering high-rise and light industrial zones as opposed to regional retail and SMU zones.
Okay.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe.
Further discussion, or? Okay, motion
I
made.
just want to make sure I understand the motion. The motion seems to have two parts, one of which is to recommend denial to the city council, and that takes care of the city council business, and the other part is a recommendation to staff. Okay.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion for adopt the zone change is hereby denied with comments. Thank you. Moving along, we have another matter, an administrative review of 391 Pawtucket Street. Subject to conditions of the previous approved site plan, the planning board will review revised building plans and elevations for the residential development project at 391 Pawtucket Street. I believe we did receive some elevation plans. I know we did approve that project, and I believe that we even approved the minutes tonight that had that project on site, so we can always refer back to that if need be. But I think, I didn't take exactly Jerry's idea, but they helped out a little bit, and Jerry said this was more so for that back parcel, I believe, was it, Jerry? for the garage?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it was to work with staff on, removing the dumpster and the landscaping, and somebody would have to do with architectural plans for the, what do you call it, the back lot over there to the left-hand side, I believe it was? Yes. So I tell you, anything, I know when I spoke with Aaron and staff, he said a lot of people, staff was happy with the new, drawings and recommendations and the way the applicant came in.
Yes, sir. The DPT had multiple meetings and revisions to the drawings, and I just wanted to share one additional information about what the facade might look like with the new cal wall. I'm not sure if this was shared with you before.
Is this the facade of the garage building? Okay.
So something which is a little bit more lighter, so that it doesn't, look like the same block. That's what's being right now proposed in.
What am I looking at?
This is what? This is for the garage in the back?
Yes, just the garage.
What material am I looking at?
Is it like,
It's this one. See this facade?
Oh, really? What is that material?
It's called cal wall. It's a little bit more lighter than the
It's a lightweight product made of 2 layers of plastic with insulation in between
and that would be the exterior
walls, yeah.
wall of that garage? That's in the back?
basically the front area that we were concerned about.
Filling in the
where-
garage doors?
It's, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That spells it out there.
They conveniently showed us a flat-roofed building.
It's to be extremely wind and weather hardy and can be used in any climate across the globe. Skylit,
So the
energy efficient.
DPD design, the design planners were in constant discussion with them, and their opinion about this proposal is that this is a modern improvement to the existing conditions of that garage building, and is in no way deteriorating the traditional quality of the traditional structure on the site.
Swati, can you show us on the elevation here where that material would be used?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's it, it looks great. What do you want to put in? I think you guys should like it.
Yes, yes, so basically in here, and, yes, and parts of these openings.
This one?
But these are all clear glass windows,
Yes,
and so this material would be in here and maybe a little along the frames?
yes.
So it'd be in here, yeah.
All right, I see.
Can we see that?
We're looking more at the proposed replacement for the garage doors.
Okay.
And also, if you look at it, see that niche coming in?
Yep.
That's the other area they were proposing. So basically, the roof of that area will have something like, the roof proposed here, not the curved structure, of course. So it looks a little bit more transparent and not like, a carriage house kind of model, or more like a typical garage building.
And these would be windows, right?
Yes, well,
And then that material would be around?
no.
I'm trying to.
That will be basically, like any other building structure, it will be painted.
Okay.
Block painted.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then,
It's basically, see this area, how this window will be looking, will resemble something like that. So pretty much, parts of it will be openable. So we are looking at something like that coming at both these areas and also to the inside.
so it's not going to look the way this elevation looks right now then, right?
No, not exactly, no. Well, what I meant is, they are showing this
Yeah, right.
as openable windows. That's
Right.
why they are designed. But what they're saying is, this whole, when you look visually, this whole opening will look like this, with some of the windows being openable.
Okay.
So the amount of opacity has been reduced.
Okay, instead of having, what were they siding or something, they're now gonna have this semi-translucent material. That's attractive. It's still a concrete garage, but
What's this material?
So that's called Cal wall. It's a new interpretation of allowing transparency, but at the same time retaining privacy to the people inside the building.
So that's going to be the exterior wall?
Oh, no, not the whole exterior wall, where they are recommending openings in terms of access and windows.
Oh, okay, okay.
Garage doors that are currently there, right?
All right.
And this part, which is kind of like, the,
Bob, you know what this, that old Red Cross building?
Yeah,
That's that building there they come in to do, yeah. That's not the front one, it's the barn in the back, the left-hand
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
The garage area, yeah.
boy, I have to say, when we took that vote on better exterior design, I wasn't primarily thinking about what they do with the windows. I was thinking
Yeah,
the fact that it's still
should probably get on the mic.
cinder block garage,
Yeah.
that's the only treatment, I'm thinking to do about that.
I'll be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed that the developer's not here tonight to talk to us about this. He just kind of threw these plans at us and then, trying to meet his requirement with this. I had a couple other questions, Swathi. This stairwell in the back, the staircase not in the garage, in the main building?
yes.
What is that going to be made of?
It will have to meet the code. So we don't have exactly the materials. I believe it is going to replace what has been proposed, what existed there, so.
Well, right now, I don't think there's any stairs in the back, because it's a...
What is like in terms of the materials used for the building, it will be something that will go, will be in compliance with the materials of that existing building.
I'm worried that they're just gonna use pressure-treated lumber. You see these a lot, and I think that's kind of an eyesore. I'd like to see something a bit more attractive than that, but I don't know. And I also had questions about the elevation of the driveway. In the first hearing, I mentioned that they're gonna be enlarging the parking area to the left of the house, as you're
Yes.
looking at it from the street.
Yes.
And there's a steep elevation there, steep drop in elevation from the house to the existing parking area. So I wondered if they were going to put in some type of retaining wall to shore up, that landscaped area.
Basically, the ground will be stabilized as much as possible with grading, but it won't be like the typical retaining wall, but it will be more like a retaining wall to secure the landscape. So,
So what's the difference between a typical retaining wall and one that restores the
a
landscape?
typical retaining wall will take a lot of structural load because we are looking at it being part of a structure. Whereas something that is proposed in terms of landscape, there are various options of environment-friendly retaining wall, which doesn't look like the typical like a constructed wall. Some of them are green. They have vegetation which act as the berms, which in turn also acts as retaining elements. So I believe the design planners who met with them, and we have our, design landscape planner too. We are trying to manage as much as possible with grading, but structurally, if that is needed, that is something the Hancock Associates, they have agreed to work with us.
Well, so I don't know how the rest of my colleagues feel, but I expected to get more back in this meeting. I feel like we kind of made an exception on this project because it exceeds the land area per dwelling unit.
Okay.
We made an exception so that we could get the renovation of the project done, of the building done. I thought we were going to see a little bit more. This we had last time, And this, all we got was a floor layout and some pictures of stuff that were pulled out of a magazine, you know, or off the internet, saying, yeah, we're gonna use stuff like this, and they don't even show up.
Well, we can definitely request more detailed plans if
Yeah,
that
and
will
I'd like the
help you.
developer to
Sure.
come,
Okay,
and maybe with a,
a
maybe
presentation.
with a, you know, a drawing of something to show us a little bit more what it's gonna look like, and address the issue that we brought up, and that is that the garage looks like a garage, and we wanted them to do something to it to make it look more
So
like
are you-
a dwelling.
Are you hoping to see some kind of rendering, which
Yes,
is
yeah,
hopefully?
that's the word,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Sir, are you involved with this project?
No, I'm just, been
You
looking,
can, lift up the microphone, I'm sorry.
sure. My name's John McGinnis, I'm on Cedar Street. The plan that was, the PDF, I looked at it online, referred to the easement that is between that and the historic property on the right-hand side of the building.
Right.
The plan indicates that that easement wraps all the way around the back of that garage. The actual easement is 110 feet long and runs only down one side. So the plan that is on the website that you can look at is incorrect in terms of where that easement is. I don't know if that's the same plan you guys are looking at right there.
What we have is just what they,
If it
we have
indicates,
just drawings of what the project, the building will look like. We
Okay,
approved
that-
it with
tho-
certain
those-
conditions to come back.
those are the elevations
Yeah,
of the,
and
yeah.
then
The
they
plot-
had some certain design in the back where the barn is to the left. We want to see how they want to propose to put those in.
Okay, the plot plan where they indicate where the buildings are on the lots
Yeah.
and the easements show that easement wrapping around the back of the garage, and it doesn't.
Sir, that is actually, remember, there is an existing easement to the east of the property. And this project, the applicant was, as part of this project, was placing an easement so that, people who are entering that property can exit. So that is why
For the
now.
development to the right.
Yes, so now it looks like, the easement is wrapping all around, because, this proposed
Because of
state
the
is
one-way
combining
traffic.
both.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the current easement allows you to enter and exit in the same place. Now,
Right,
I
they're
think
gonna
they were
make-
changing the easement, right, Swati?
Yes.
So that the people on the historic property could go around.
Yes, sir.
Correct, I understand. It's 110 feet down one side of the building. They've increased the easement. Across the back of the land, behind the garage, the easement shows wrapping all the way around two sides of the property behind the garage, and the easement, as described in the title, doesn't go there.
That's not the current easement, that's the proposed easement. They're going to add, correct, Swati? They're going to
Yes.
add land to the existing easement, to add that leg that goes across the back. They're adding that. That's not current, you're right, that's not where the easement currently is. They're going to add that easement.
What's the purpose of that easement?
That's access to come,
Sir, that's a one-way entrance only right now, and right now people are anyway using this property to exit.
We're behind the garage. Not in front of the garage, which is where the traffic's gonna go. Behind the garage, towards the riverfront side, down the hill. The easement is described as being, in the title piece that's recorded, it is described as being like 20 feet wide and 110 feet long.
Yes, that easement is access to the proposed future a park behind, they're looking at
riverfront
an
park.
overlook and
Okay.
everything. Yes, that's what that easement is for.
Do you have the plan that I'm sorry, I didn't, it's a big deal, it take a lot of your time.
not at all, not at all.
The easement is this. Yes. But it doesn't go around here like that. The description, the legal description of the easement describes this piece. It has nothing to do with going back across here. I'm sure that was what I read when I checked. Does that make sense? Might want to check that out when you're doing the plans. Other than that, good luck make the big thing look beautiful.
Hey.
Thank you. I understand his concern, and I need to check the original drawings that were submitted along with it, but definitely, I'm going to, basically ask the applicant or the developer provide a complete set of drawings with presentations on, with the changes addressing your concerns that were made part of the approval.
Yeah, because if they could just give us some type of rendering that would show
Sure.
what this would look like.
On the facade.
On the side, I mean.
Okay.
I think it's hard to really visualize how this would look on that back area. I mean, if he had a couple of pictures of saying, this is what we, here's the barn, here's the picture, this is what it's gonna look like, and then, might look great. Here, it's just kinda hard to pull it together.
I understand
You know what
that.
I mean, once you show it up there, it might look great, but right now, it's hard to say.
Yeah, and Mr. Frechette, I remember at the meeting suggested, changing the roof line of the garage so that it more, matched the roof line of the house. That was kind of when we talked about changing the architectural, look of that garage to make it more like a dwelling. That's what I had in mind. They were going to do something like that, not just change the windows.
So we had some discussion with the historic board about, doing something. So, and that is one of the reason why we agreed to, accepting a modern improvement, because the structure as it exists right now is not a complement structure for the historic building. But putting a roof line which resembles or complements very similar to the other one necessarily is not something that is like a direct preservation act of the existing building. We have to accept the fact that the garage building is a garage building as it exists. So converting that into a traditional building has its limitations as far as budget is concerned, and also we technically then cannot consider it as historic building anymore because we have changed the character of it. So that is why the design team came to an understanding that this will be an improvement, but it's more of a modern interpretation that doesn't deteriorate the quality of the historical structure on the site.
Has this been, this design, this elevation been before the historic board?
I believe so. They have been part of the discussion, yes.
Okay. I'd want to see what, if they took any final action, if they approved this.
I will
I wish Dick was here.
definitely inform you about that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we delay action on this vote and request that the developer provide us more detail on their plans, including a rendering of what it would look like, as well as I'd personally like to know about the elevation, how they plan to handle the elevation changes in the parking lot.
Okay.
Second that.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion carries. So you can let the applicant know, and they can pick a future date to come back, whatever's agreeable to them. I know our next meeting, we have the charter school back again, so.
Okay.
So if they want to come in then, or the future date, or whichever. Okay. So, moving along, let's see. Old business, we have none at this time. Notices from abutting towns. We don't have any in our packet this evening, so, but we do have ZBA notices, okay. So I believe we have two notice for the zoning board of appeals. Does anybody have any concerns on these two requests? The first one is on 590 Middlesex Street to operate a takeout restaurant without meeting the parking. And the second one looks like to put a paved area down, which looks like it might be there already.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions, concerns on these, or anything in detail?
I had a question about the use of the second floor for the Grand Street property.
Oh, yeah, so that'd be the corner, Middlesex and Grant?
Right.
Yeah.
They're talking about parking for the restaurant, but there's no discussion about what the upper floor is being used for, or does it have to have parking requirement too?
I mean, I had a couple of concerns on that, because when they looked for relief, talking about, they need two variances. one from the required parking, and then the second one, because they're 1 foot from the lot line.
Yeah.
I mean, and then they go down and say, all employees will park off-site.
Is there's plenty of off-site parking on Middlesex Street.
Yeah, and I mean, this is in the corner of Grand Street, which is a pretty tight location. I mean, I think 1 foot to a lot line is pretty tight. I mean, you brush your snow off, it's gonna be in the neighbor's yard. You know, and if the employees are parking off-site, where are they gonna be parking? Usually, you know, a lot of times they'll show you where they're gonna go, so, you know, like, where you're gonna put them off-site, how they're gonna do. I mean, he talks about the variance hardship because of the shape of the lot, but if he's going to put a new business in there, I think he's picking the lot. It's not like
Yeah.
it's an existing lot where he's trying to do something on there to begin with. I mean, if I buy a lot and I wanna put a business in and say, well, it's because, you know, the lot's insufficient, but, well, I should've picked another lot, I guess. But, I mean, the fact that it's the parking in that neighborhood, only being 1 foot from a lot line and 3 feet from a building,
On the corner.
yeah, it's on the corner there. I mean, that's right down there by, what's it, is it that Crow Electric project, I think it is, right down there next to them? Yeah.
Yep.
And you go down Grand Street, try to take a left on the Middlesex Street, that's, I mean, if they don't, I mean, most likely, if the employees aren't gonna park there, probably gonna park on the street. I mean, most people are gonna park closer to the building if they're working there, especially a day like today.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. This one caught my eye as well. I think, and of course, we're always trying to walk the line between, you know, what, this is a zoning board issue. Does it really warrant our position? But, you know, I look at this as more of a planning issue because, as you mentioned, it's gonna impact the neighborhood. Really, this lot is not appropriate for a takeout restaurant. It's no hardship. It'll be a hardship for everybody that has to deal with it, I think. It's a very crowded area, it's not enough parking.
Property is zoned neighborhood business.
I really feel like this is significant enough where it would be warrant our taking a stand on it, and I'd make a motion that we recommend denial on this particular
For those reasons
application.
stated, I mean, the requirements are 9 parking spaces, he has 5, and he's only one foot from the lot area. Motion made to recommend denial?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
My sense on this is that this is exactly the type of proposal that is inside the ZBA's wheelhouse. Is there enough room? Is there enough room for the parking? Do we, I am very confident that this is, that the ZBA can deal with this perfectly well on their own. I don't think there are any issues that this brings up, other than exactly what the ZBA specializes in looking at.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend denial.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made in second. All in favor for denial, say aye.
Aye.
Opposition?
There's a nay.
Okay, so we have recommendations 4 in favor, 1 against for denial. Anybody have any questions on the next one, which would be for paved area? It looks like it's already paved. Did you have a chance to see this one, Jerry?
Yeah, I actually walk by it all the time.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to get out there, so I was curious if you could give us a little, is it already paved?
Yeah, and I guess the problem is with, and there's actually a couple of them that are paved that are along that particular area. And I can tell you in the past, I've actually, further down on Varnum Ave, somebody else paved, and you know, the neighborhood group at the time had even called the zoning officer at the city, because really, something should have been done some time ago on this. I just, you know, once again, you've got to take a look at it from a couple different perspectives, but I think in many cases, people have maybe more cars than they should have. It's not like there's not adequate parking, and Varnum Ave is a arterial road that's that has, if you drive down there, the houses have front yards, they have green space, and unfortunately, you have pockets of these 2 families that went up, and it seems that, you know, in defense of the people here, they're not the only people that have gone ahead and just had their yards paved without, and at the time, I believe the contractors weren't getting the proper permits, and it was done. Like I said, we've actually at one point when I was involved in the neighborhood, we called the zoning officer, but nothing was done. And I certainly think it's inappropriate for this strip to be tarred over like this, it really is. It doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. There is appropriate parking, it's just that I think you were running into homes with more cars than probably should be. But that's just my insight on really how it even fits into the neighborhood, and what the issues are
It's a
surrounding it.
long, narrow lot, I mean, there should be, if there was a parking, put parking on the back, but I don't know.
I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at this plan. It's this edge of pavement on the Melrose Ave parcel. Is there a driveway that goes up there? What does it service?
No, it looks like encroachment on that alleged Melrose Ave by both abutters.
Oh, I see. That's not a driveway. That's the green area between two driveways.
Correct.
My question was, if that is Melrose Ave and it's a paper street, why don't they petition the city to abandon it and both sides end up with the parcel, half of the parcel?
Sure.
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, part of his thing is, I'm not familiar with the rules and regulations of the city of Lowell, but, and he goes, not familiar with the rules, with all due respect,
But this, the plan here seems to show an owner, the heirs of George Fall, so it's not city land. It's,
so what he did,
let me guess, it's land nobody's paid, it's
But
private
I
land,
guess
nobody's
I
paid
have a
taxes on for
question, is
generations.
it or isn't it? One, the note on here said the parcel is shown in the Middlesex Registry of Deeds as Melrose Ave, but then it said for the heirs of George Fall. Who owns it? I guess is the question.
yeah. Because it looked like there's a shed on that property there,
Yep.
Because if they're encroaching on Melrose Ave, if it's city property, there's no adverse possession,
Yeah,
they
it's-
can't be using that, they're trespassing.
Yeah.
Well, they're trespassing anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird facility, so, the board have recommendation on this one, or we want to make a recommendation, or?
I really, again, this is really applying from how it fits into the neighborhood. I really, I would have no problem recommending denial on this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have a motion, recommend denial, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposition? Hearing none, recommendation for that is denial. Moving along on the agenda, any of the board members have any comments or updates on anything? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's made and
Second.
second for adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have adjourned. Good night, and thank you, everyone.